4 days, my brain has been spiraling on the recent Jacksepticeye ego drop, so I decided that this would be a great time for me to try and stabilize my thoughts and just have a little chat. If you know what I'm talking about, welcome. We're going to be discussing ego theories and spoilers for the anomaly detected Chase Brody video that dropped on the Jacksepticeye YouTube channel 4 days ago on Monday. If you don't, I'll try and give you a brief rundown of what I'm talking about. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch it. From my understanding, there are only 5 videos that are canon now. And I'll touch on that in a minute. I think I'll touch on that first, but we'll touch on that in a minute. So it's not going to be long to catch up with what's going on, and that's a good thing. And again, I'll talk about that in a second. But this is going to include spoilers for that video and some other videos that are on the Jacksepticeye channel. So if you don't want to know or want to go experience them first and then come back and hear what I have to say, go watch them first. I'm going to link to all of the canonical videos I am going to talk about down in the description box below. So if you're interested, don't listen to me first. Go enjoy it because it's epic and I cannot wait to see where this all goes. But go watch them and then come back here to me. These are all of my notes from about 30 minutes of footage. Well, predominantly on the 20 minutes we got earlier this week. I think the first thing about it is there's a lot of ego content on Jacksepticeye's channel. So for reference, for anyone who doesn't know, the Jacksepticeye egos are these funny little characters he's been doing for 6 years. They include Jackieboy Man, who is a superhero, Dr. Henrik Schniepelstein, who is a doctor, supposedly. Well, he'll tell you he's good, but from what we've seen so far, he's not. Marvin the Magnificent, who's a magician. Jameson Jackson, who is a mute, black and white film era puppeteer, entertainer-esque character. Chase Brody, who is a parody of Dude Perfect, or at least was back in the day. I'll touch on that in a moment. And finally, Jacksepticeye, who's a fan-made anti or dark version of Seán back in the day that he, for Halloween in 2016, brought to life as a little nod to the community and the creation they had made, which may now be biting us all in the arse. For the purposes of the IRISVerse, which is what I'm calling it, not all of the ego videos are canon. My understanding, or the only way I can really make any of this make sense, I guess, is that we have what is the EGOVerse and we have what is the IRISVerse. And the EGOVerse may contain the IRISVerse, but the IRISVerse does not contain all of the EGOVerse. So I believe back in the day, back in 2018, there was a period of time where Seán was doing a lot of hints at Chase, specifically Chase Brody, in his gameplays, or like he himself would do weird breaking the fourth wall things, which was very anti-esque back in 2018. And there was a lot of talks about Chase's best friend, who is assumed to be character Jack, which is not the Jack we see playing. God, this is confusing to explain. It's not the Jack we see playing the games, but it's basically the Jack that in 2016's Say Goodbye, which is the first anti-video. It's that Jack that gets his knife. It's that Jack that gets his throat slit. That's character Jack. It's a little bit like when I do the Circuit Girl stuff, when I do the Delta Room play, when I change anytime we go underground. In that, I guess, Alice at the start of those videos is character Alice, who changes into character Circuit Girl, is an Alice me playing the game. But that's kind of the gist of the EGOVerse theory, right? So there is a Jack that is not the day-to-day Seán that plays the games. It's a character Jack that is part of the EGOVerse lore. A lot of what is the EGOVerse lore, I think, has now nothing got to do with the IRISVerse lore, which is basically like using the same characters and the well-established characters that we as the community know, but they have this completely different story, completely different motives, there or thereabouts, completely different, like, personalities, characteristics. They'll do different things, they look different. So for me, they are 2 separate entities, which means that not everything from EGOVerse has to fit canonically with IRISVerse. To strip it down to its base, EGOVerse is any video that includes an ego anytime, anywhere. IRISVerse is specifically the story we're being told now in 2022, the one that started back in, we'll get to that, but basically started back in 2019. Its canonic timeline starts from where we pick it up in 2019. I say this because the story about Chase having a friend who is in a coma, which the community has assumed is character Jack, who was unable to be saved by Henrik in the video Kill Jacksepticeye. I don't think any of that stuff has anything to do with IRISVerse. Of all the videos I class as canon, only one of them has not come out in the last 4 years. So anything prior to that, all of the Egopocalypse stuff back in 2018, bar one video, which I'll talk about, all of the 2016 Halloween anti-stuff, all of the references to Jack or someone being in a coma, or the Chase saying, Jack, it's Chase, you gotta wake up. All of that, nothing got to do with what I believe is the story that is now being told. Please feel free to disagree with me. That's what the comment section is for. But this video is for me to discuss what I think is going on, because I need some clarity of mind. And the other reason I think this is true is that to ask new people, because when Seán started all of these egos, it was, like I said, back in 2016. The channel was probably at like half the subs it has now. So to ask 14 million people to get invested in this project that he's putting a lot of time, effort, money, dedication, passion, there's so much into it, and he wants people to watch it, he wants people to enjoy it, to ask that many people to go back and watch through all of the FNAF videos, all of these random scary videos, all of these random videos where he decided a ego reference fit, that's a really big ask. Whereas if the IRISVerse only follows certain videos as canon, which is pretty much all but one, that were the ones that have been released recently, when the egos have a whole new look and there's a whole different tone and feel to those videos, that means you're asking people to go watch 5 videos and be caught up on what's canon. Anything else is not canon. Now, that does mean all of the power hours are not canon, in my mind, to the IRISVerse. I will now only be talking about the IRISVerse, but I'll keep referring it to the IRISVerse just to keep up that differential that, yes, there's a load of ego stuff. And I also think the ego story Seán was telling in 2018 has kind of been abandoned now. I think he's decided to go a different way with it, and he's decided to refine it and explore different themes, explore different things, try things differently visually and cinematographically, try different genres, try a different way of storytelling. I think the story that had Coma Jack in it from the EGOVerse is abandoned. I don't think we're returning to that. And I also think it's been so long that the community has run and kind of made their own versions of these characters, or their own theories on how that story goes, that there's so many theories on it now out there that to try and pick that up is going to be a case of someone's probably guessed what he was planning, because so many people have been involved in trying to work that out, and it's a little bit of a, I don't know, I just feel like it's going a different way with it, which is why that's EGOVerse. I feel like EGOVerse is now ours as the communities. We helped make these characters. The Power Hour characters were never supposed to birth into these whole new characters, but we as the community loved them so much that it was like, he was like, okay, this is cool. They want to engage with these characters. Let's bring them back. Let's do more with them. But I feel like that is a very us as the community crafted side of things, the EGOVerse, and it was made for us. Whereas the IRISVerse is Seán going, okay, I've got these really cool characters with some really cool potential backstories, potential motives, or whatever, a really interesting way of how these people could all connect. I'm gonna go do this, and it's gonna be a totally own thing. IRISVerse only has 5 canonical videos. They're all connected down in the description box, but I will list them now. The only one that was not released 2019, post 2019, it was called Dark Silence. It's now called What Do You Want From Me? Now, the only reason this one remains canonical is because in the recent one, Anomaly Detected Chase Brody, there's so many Dark Silence references. I even just found a reference in the Chase video that also, I think, has a Dark Silence reference. And I think it's a really little clip at the end of that gameplay. So if you're going to watch it and you just want to watch the ego stuff, just scrub right to the end. The recent Henrik drop and the Dark Silence drop are both little clips at the end of videos, and that is the only one outside of Chase, You're Not Ready for These Scary Games, which has the Henrik drop at the end, JJ's Jolly Jaunts, and I'm gonna say this wrong, Argentum Inanis, and also obviously Anomaly Detected. That also is canonical now. So there's only 5 videos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm lying to you. There's only 6 videos now, I think, canonical. Say Goodbye is obviously the first anti-drop. I think in terms of like a always watching, you just sat there and watched kind of theme, it still tracks as being like a good reference. But in terms of Anti and Anti's new motives, I don't think it's going to track at all. And to say that Say Goodbye as canon means bringing character Jack in, and I also don't think he is going to be a part of the IRISVerse either. So unless he's like the head honcho of IRIS, but I think this is so much more a Chase-centric story now that I don't think character Jack is going to be in this at all. Now, I'm assuming you're here and you know and you've seen, so I'm not going to go over what's been going on. This is just kind of a brain dump, really, of things I think. I am heavily subscribed to a time loop theory for this story, because for a couple of reasons. Out of story-wise, because Seán has said on multiple occasions how much he loves time travel in stories. I'm very subscribed to a time travel that is like a Harry Potter style time travel. Therein, you can go back in time and you can do stuff, but you always went back in time and you always did that thing. So you going back in time actually doesn't change anything. You're just making what happened happen, right? It always happened. I'm not personally a massive fan of time travel because it can be a quick fix for big problems, and it can be used quite lazily. But if it's used in this way where you always went back in time, you always tracked back and did that thing, and you're basically just fulfilling what you've already done, so there is time travel, but it's like non-evasive time travel, like there's no butterfly effect or anything, right? Then things don't get too complicated, and then I think it can work really, really well. And for the time loop theory I have on this IRISVerse, that has to be the way time travel works. It has to be people going back in time to try and fix something, only to realize there's nothing they can do, and them traveling back in time in the first place caused the issues that they've tried to go back and change. My theory on that is that Anti is actually a variant of Chase, and that's why Chase is so important to this story, because that we're actually facing off on a variant of Chase that has traveled back in time to try and stop a variant of Chase from doing what they did. So Anomaly Detected basically revealed that Chase's wife and kid have been killed. They are no more, and the running theory off the bat of that was, oh my god, Anti possessed Chase and made him kill his own family, which I think is a bit much. If that is the case, for me personally, there is no way to forgive Anti. There is no way to support Anti. There is no way to want him to win. There's no redeeming quality of that. And this might just be a personal thing. I'm not a super fan of villains just being villainous for the sake of being villainous. Like, oh, we have to have an evil to fight, so this guy's bad now. I love stories that make you think, holy shit, this evil person could be real. Like, okay, taking away the clearly supernatural stuff Anti's got going on for him, but to sit there and think this evil person could be a real person. They have motives, and you know, if you actually sit and think about it, those motives make sense. And I'm kind of in agreement with you. It's very much the Thanos effect, right? No one liked Thanos, no one really wanted him to win, but when you sat down and thought about why he was doing what he was doing, it kind of tracked, it kind of made sense. And then you're sat there like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? Because I don't want you to win, but I kind of get why you're doing it. And like, if only someone had just sat down and had a chat, mate, maybe this would have never happened. Maybe you could have been stopped, or maybe you could have been seen around to reason, or hell, maybe you could have convinced everyone else of your reason. Those kind of villains are so engaging to me, and so they're the kind of villains I love. And obviously, like I say this, and there's part of me that's like, this isn't my story, okay? So as much as this is what I personally would like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If Anti is a family-killing asshole, and because he needs Chase alone and sad and depressed so he can feed off his energy or something, and that's his motivation to do it, then fair enough. That's the story that we're going to get. But I'm kind of hoping he's going to be a little bit more in depth than that. And knowing how long Seán's taken to like plan all this out meticulously and all the plans he has and the things he wants to do, I don't feel like Anti is just going to be a throwaway. Why he needed his sad energy, so he killed everyone he loved. I just feel like it's a very throwaway kind of things. I think there's way more to Anti, but that's why then the time loop theory really sits nicely with me, because if Anti is actually Chase from the future coming back to try and stop whom he thought was Anti, only to realize too late, shit, me coming back has caused this, like, this anomaly, this time glitch, this distortation or whatever. Or even if it's Chase getting involved in IRIS to try and work out what the hell Anti is, and then suddenly finding out, oh, well, I can use this antimatter material, which is confirmed IRIS use antimatter because it's what powers their Watcher cameras. Watcher, WTCHR, not WATCHRER. No, I added too many R's in there. You know what I mean? They're acronyms, which we have no idea what they are. Of course, we know nothing about this verse. If Chase then gets corrupted by the antimatter and he's special because he is actually Anti, that's just so compelling to me. And it checks so well, because I mean, it just makes Chase's story a heart-crushing and devastating and really, really sad. But I'm a glutton for pain and suffering in storytelling and ringing your audience through the emotional mill, so I'm kind of down for it. That's the one I'm subscribing to at the moment because it tracks the best to me. The other egos then come in very different ways. Jackieboy Man I'll just briefly talk about, because even in EGOVerse we have nothing to go on for Jackieboy Man, apart from maybe he's got super good vision because of something that was said in the one game that he was used to play in, if you take that canonically, which I think lots of people do. So for EGOVerse, that's what you got. But a lot of Jackieboy Man stuff is community created. For me, that's really cool, because for Seán, Jackieboy Man's a complete blank canvas. If he decides that Jackieboy Man's been this evil, like, anti-hero forever, who are we to even debate that? We don't know anything about Jackie. Everything has been assumption and theorizing and coming up with things ourselves. So we've never really had anything confirmed or denied about him. So that one's really intriguing. I kind of see him as potentially being part of IRIS, like either an early experiment or like a founding leader. Like maybe he discovered the antimatter and the antimatter gave him his powers, and so he thought, yo, there's might be something here, and then started getting people involved to help him. I'm not too sure how he's gonna fit, but I'm very interested to find out, because although we have nothing on him, he is somehow my favorite. JJ is also a really interesting one. Jameson Jackson, JJ for short, because from what we've seen of him in Jolly Jaunts, he obviously gets possessed by Anti within that video and is signaling out to the camera, to us, a little bit like Anti does, breaking the fourth wall to be like, help me. He signs help me, and I think it's ASL he does it in, not BSL, but I can't remember. It's one of the two. So again, I don't know how he tracks. He at the moment is a high candidate for who Echo is. So Echo is a voice in Chase's head he spoke to whilst under isolated interrogation at IRIS. Who Echo is a big discussion. It's my three strong running theories are, it's JJ, because JJ is already corrupted by Anti, and so he would have this connection with Chase, but would not want to call himself by his name because he wouldn't want Anti to know that he is communing with Chase or has that connection with Chase that only Anti thinks he has. When he says, who are you or something, I don't know, the Echo could go, oh, I'm a friend, I'm friendly, I'm helpful, or something like this, rather than, hey, I'm JJ, nice to meet you. Who are you? I think he then asks, because Chase follows with, I'm Chase, I believe. I haven't watched that one. I haven't watched that bit for a hot moment, and I've watched so much recently that it's all kind of just merging, which is kind of why I'm doing this. I think Echo is the nickname that Chase gives it because it's another voice in his head, but it doesn't sound like when Anti's in his head. It sounds different. Maybe it sounds like an echo because maybe it sounds like his voice. Now, we've never heard JJ speak either because he's always been in black and white film-esque videos. So maybe when maybe when JJ speaks, he does have Chase's voice, and that's why he thought it was an echo. Perhaps JJ can speak. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed he can't. In Jolly Jaunts, for sure, different to his power hour, and obviously I've said the power hour isn't canon to IRIS in my mind, but Jolly Jaunts is, and in Jolly Jaunts he's actually speaking, or it looks like he's actually talking. Does he do that in power hour? I think there are moments he doesn't, where the word cards the text cards, sorry, come in and kind of imply what he would have said. In Jolly Jaunt's, for sure, he's always as if he's talking. We just can't hear him. So maybe he does have a voice. Maybe he can speak. We just never have heard him. So maybe when Chase hears him speak to him, he hears an echo because he's hearing his own voice back, right? So that's the JJ theory. The other one I have is future Chase. So again, feeding into the time loop theory. Another Chase from the future is coming back to try and stop the past Chase from going back in the future in the first place. Okay? But that obviously can't happen because of the way I am thinking time travel works, and that once you've done it once, that's it. It always happened. Future Chase number 2 comes back, but the only way he can talk is through this kind of ethel. Maybe he has a different way of traveling back in time. Maybe because he realizes that he can't use the same way to travel back in time to change it, because that's actually how he's making it happen in the first place, that he has to find a new way to time travel back. And this is this kind of echoey thing. Now that tracks super well with it being echo, because that would be a direct one-to-one replication of Chase's voice in his head. So that would track too. The other one I have is it's Henrik. And the way that one works is, to me, Henrik, to caveat, all of the egos have some connection to Iris. That's how they're all going to come together. That's how Anti's going to bounce off of each of them. And if he does end up using them all, that's how he's going to do it, because he's going to have a connection to them all through this thing that's using antimatter, which is probably powering him in Artefacts, and we'll get to the Artefacts in a minute. I strongly believe Henrik is, if not a current employee at I.R.I.S, at least an ex-employee at I.R.I.S. Now, for Henrik to be Echo, he has to be a current employee at I.R.I.S. The only way he can see to get in touch with Chase without I.R.I.S knowing what he's doing is to use the same system that Anti is, use the antimatter, or however Anti is connecting with Chase at this point. And so his voice kind of comes through as this echo. And the only way this doesn't track is obviously Henrik is German, and that is re-established in canon in the clip at the end of "You Aren't Prepared for These Scary Games," because he's saying 9999. I think that's the weakest one of the three. There are plenty of other theories out there, like it could be Chase's kid, it could be Sam, the Jacksepticeye from Seán's channel icon. I don't think that one's right, because I don't think this story is going to be feeding off of the Jacksepticeye stuff. I think it is its own. That's why I'm saying EGOVerse, IRISVerse, right? IRISVerse is its own thing. It's taking these characters that we know, but it's Seán's interpretation of them. It's Seán's story. It's his thing to do with what he wants to do, irregardless of community influence. For me, I.R.I.S is an incredibly ruthless company. We see how they treat Chase, and just straight up, he's a subject. Let's isolate him. Let's observe him under isolation. Let's try and break him to his crack point, because we want information for him. We will do anything we need to get information out of this man. Even let what we're trying to get information about attack him whilst in our facility to get him to give us some information. So I don't think I.R.I.S is a very nice company. I have a small theory that potentially Anti's behind I.R.I.S, and Anti is using I.R.I.S, or has built I.R.I.S to develop or discover more about the antimatter and these artifacts that are seemingly powered by the same stuff Anti is, and their research and development into this area has given him a gateway to become the fully formed version we see at the end of Anomaly Detected. That's a working theory. There's a lot of holes in that theory, so I'm not super sure about that one. I do apologize, this video has been all over the place. I really am going to try and chapter it for you guys, so if you want to just skim through, or at least see what we're going to be talking about, hopefully I can chapter it, and hopefully it can be a bit less of a brain dump. This is a little, this is more for me than anyone else, so I can be like, right, this is what I thought after the first drop. After the next drop, I'll probably do another one and be like, ignore that first video, all wrong. These artifacts are established in the lore as random relics to be found that have some kind of power and influence over the people that are near them. So they cause nosebleeds, hallucinations, the hearing of voices, and stuff such the like of this. I.R.I.S collect these things up and take them away and save the people in the town from their influence. Now, I don't trust anything I.R.I.S says. I also believe, to briefly jump in here and make it even harder for me to chapter, I also believe that I.R.I.S is lying to Chase about the date. In the video just called Chase, there's a note on the door at the very, very start that is dated the 11th of August 2019. Says he must be out of this place of residence by September 2019. Basically gives him like 3 weeks or something to get out. It's an American date first, which means I have to read it backwards, but it can't be the 8th of the 11th because the first date we're given in Anomaly Detected when he's under interrogation, which follows straight from that Chase video, is October 18th, 2019. So immediately, I am seeing a time change here. How long does Chase actually cover? Does it cover the 11th of August through to the 18th of October? Is he then, are we assuming he's living in his car now because he's obviously been ejected from his house? Or is there a time jump, which I thought when I first watched Anomaly, or when I first saw the stream, because that was fun. I was on the stream for that. That was good fun. And I did a whole kind of like opinion drop on my thoughts on the stream and everything over on my Twitter. So if you're interested, go check that out. Links to that also down in the description. But when I first saw it and when you're first given that date, obviously it's 2022 and it's being released. Obviously, there are real life reasons as to why there was a delay between the filming of Chase and the filming of the next one. So that has to be forgiven and like has to become irrelevant to the actual timeline of the story. But it was interesting to me that the date on that document is the 11th of August, and yet the first date character Arian, I'm calling him that because I don't think we were ever given a name for him, but the first date he gives is October 18th, which is at least 2 months, just over 2 months past when that message or that notice would have been put up that Chase then reads at the beginning of Chase. So there's something going wonky with time. And I don't know, like there's also the moment in Anomaly Detected where character Arian's like, okay, we're going to ask you some questions. We're going to do this test. Try and answer them truthfully. We'll know if you're not. And Chase is like, well, shouldn't I be hooked up to some wires or something? Shouldn't I be, you know, how are you going to tell if I'm lying? There's no, what are they called? Polygraph? I think it's called a polygraph. I can't remember. But whatever they're called, there's none of those. And character Arian's just like, don't worry, we have the technology. And it kind of struck me that if it was still 2019, this technology in this universe, because this universe has its own rules that don't follow real life rules, right? It's not a carbon copy real life universe. It's got its own things, its own jurisdiction, like the CNC and IRIS are connected. There's no like police force or anything, because I guess the only reports to CNC would be for anomalies, which is a post that IRIS tweeted like way back when they started in May. But it kind of struck me that it was odd that Chase wouldn't know about this technology, wouldn't know that this tech existed, and there were these watcher cameras that had lie detecting abilities and emotion readers. Now that, as literally as I've said it, maybe that is how the multiverse comes into it. Maybe that is how we have multiple people looking the same. Maybe this is multiverse coming in, because IRIS did tweet about multiverse is being talked about a lot in current culture. And it's funny, it's such an interesting field. So maybe the zap, as I call it, at the end of Chase was him teleporting to another universe within the multiverse. So they try and track what date and time it was for him when that happened, so they can make him believe everything's fine, because they want information from him, right? The only reason they've really got him there is because, well, he was one, reported as appearing out of nowhere, which in universe clearly is strange, and also he's had contact with ALTR 114209. Yes, and I'll get onto ALTRs in just one sec, and then I'll finally talk about Henrik. They would happily lie to him and tell him anything they thought would make him more, what's the word? More compliant, more willing to hand over any information he has. And Chase straight up is like, I don't know what or who ALTR 114209 is. I don't know what or who that is. I don't know who or what. You keep telling me I'm lying to you. How can I be lying to you? I don't know what that is. And also, there is an inconsistency in dates. So unless Chase is driving around for 2 months in his car looking for the grave monument for his family in the woods, which something that poignant, I think possibly might know where that is. Also think on the multiverse theory. What if they're not dead, but they're just gone? The line he says is, "Where are they? What do you want from me?" You hear in Dark Silence, you hear a woman scream and a baby crying twice. And then at the end, it's the end of the hallway. Auntie turns around, and then Chase yells, "Where are they? What do you want from me?" Perhaps Auntie... Because the thing is, with the grave monument, that's where I've just come to with that. Sorry, I'll fill in the gap that my mouth didn't project from my brain. My God. Lots going on in my head. The grave is not at a gravesite. It's not in a cemetery. There's no gravestone, which kind of makes me think there were no bodies to be buried. There were no bodies. And it's interesting, the line that character Aaron or scientist Aaron gives is, "We know what was taken from you. Not we know what you lost." So perhaps if the multiverse, I think multiverse might be, time loop's got to be in it somewhere. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe, well, it does, because there's so many references to time with ALTR 5914, which I'll get to in a minute. Time travel has to be looped into this somewhere. But perhaps the overarching is multiversal, and all of the egos come from their own universe within the IRISVerse, not the EGOVerse. And that Auntie has taken Chase's family to another universe, which would then track, "I know what I did. He shows me such awful things. What I did, I didn't kill them." Because that line's always struck to me as well. Like, how can Chase be so guilt-ridden with what he did, which is, I think, connected to Dark Silence and what happens there. We don't know what is yet. But to be that guilt-ridden and feel that responsible for, "He showed me such awful, awful things, what I did, what he did to his family," to feel that guilt-ridden, but to then be of sound enough mind to be like, "I didn't kill them." So there was a theory running around for ages that Auntie possessed Chase to kill his own family. I think I mentioned that earlier. But the only reason that doesn't track is if Chase would remember Chase, doing something awful to his family, leading to him losing them, and then saw Chase, killing them, he wouldn't be able to sit there with clean, like, in such clarity to say, but I didn't kill him. I didn't kill them, sorry. He's so convinced he didn't kill them, but he is responsible for them being dead. If that makes sense. I think that makes sense. So maybe we got some multiversal stuff here. Man, I haven't even thought about that. Oh my God. 8 pages, and even now, whilst talking about it, I'm still coming up with new ideas. Quick reference. The case number on Chase's eviction notice is 14DS 2018 or 2018, which 14th of May 2018 was when that video dropped. So I think that's a reference. Definitely timey-wimey stuff, and we definitely don't trust Iris. ALTRs. Let's talk briefly about ALTRs. Anagram for ALTR is the one we might be closest to working out. People have suggested abnormal life form traversing reality, which is, I think it's almost on the nail. It's the L I have trouble with, because I believe Auntie is the first ALTR that is not an object. Now, we've been confirmed that ALTR 5914, which is teased as a time thief in the posters in the cafeteria in I.R.I.S, we have the confirmed document from the I.R.I.S Twitter now that says, basically refers to it as an object. And this brings me back to the Henrik theory that I promised 20 minutes ago. I believe Auntie is the first life form ALTR, which means life form wouldn't be in the acronym for ALTR, because they wouldn't be life forms, they'd be items. ALTR 5914 has been surmised as potentially JJ's pocket watch. In his power hour, it starts with him getting out a pocket watch and being like, "Oh, the time, we better get started." However, in Jolly Jaunts, he's never seen with a pocket watch. So as I don't now count power hours as canon, I'm tempted to be like, not the pocket watch, don't know if the pocket watch exists. However, one thing I will say is almost definitely an ALTR artifact. And the artifacts are the things, I did mention that earlier, but just to recap, the artifacts are the things that corrupt people around them and give them nosebleeds and hallucinations and hear voices, and what I assume are connected to antimatter. And why IRIS would want them is because they want them to study the antimatter so they can use the antimatter for their own personal gain and their technology, and to be superior in their version of the universe. One item that almost certainly is in, I can't say it, AI, I'm going to call it, the Marvin short, is his crystal ball. I 100% believe that is an ALTR artifact, partially because in that video, he's going through a book. There's an IRIS reference in that book as well. IRIS equals antimatter, which brings us to all of the antimatter stuff. But there's also, when you first see him with the crystal ball, it's like a POV shot and his hand's like shaking, but it's almost like he's being lured into touching the crystal ball, as if there's a power within it that's getting in his head that's like, you should definitely touch this thing. I think it gives him past, present, future flashes. That's my running theory on that. I did run through what those flashes were, if I can find my Marvin page. There it is. So it starts with the say goodbye throat slit scene, which I think is literally only there to be like anti, like a big arrow for the community. Again, I'm not sure. I think, or it could be a flash to another multiverse where if this glitchy demon antichrist horrendous monster man gets out in Marvin's universe, he's gonna go and like corrupt other universes, and that could be how EGOVerse links back into IRISVerse, if people are looking for a tie. So maybe when I said that earlier that they shouldn't connect, maybe that's exactly how they connect. But also, I just think Anti's traversed what the community ever made him to be. I think Seán's taken it in such a different way, and I think his new visual aesthetic really sounds home that to me. It's like, this ain't the guy we've seen goofing around slitting people's throats in pumpkin carvings. That was an odd sentence to say. This is a different dude. This is a different being. This is a nightmare. We should all run and panic and hide and try and not engage with this one because we can't beat it. It's very powerful. But there is that luring of the artifact for Marvin, and then he touches it and he gets all these flashes, and even at the end of it he's like shit and panicking and shaking and breathing quite heavily when he comes out of those flashes. There's an anti-line whilst those flashes are going on. I've tried so many times to hear it. It's overlaid with something else, which makes it very difficult. I think it says, you all use snatched time, which again would reference the time thing. Maybe someone's using time travel to try and bring all of these guys together at the same time to be a better force to be anti. Not sure. That's a bit weak sauce, but it's a line I picked up earlier. So there's something in that as well. And again, anti being aware of who these characters are and what they're doing and what they're about. I mean, it could still hold fast on the Henrik being Echo if he's like, I don't like what you're doing to this dude, and I have this same connection with this ALTR as this dude, so maybe I can have a chat with him. Maybe I can glean some information that can help me because I'm a little bit in peril here, even though it's a dude he doesn't know, right? So I don't think the egos know each other. I think Marvin's aware there are others that he should like be in contact with, because like I say, I think it's a past, present, future, or like a this is what will happen if you don't stop this guy kind of flashes in that crystal ball. But also I think the crystal ball flashes are corrupted by anti, because I think there's some antimatter, blah blah blah. I think it's an artifact. All kind of links full circle. There's lots of loose threads around the crystal ball at the moment and what actually that means. But I don't think I don't think Marvin's like, oh right, Anti and Schneep and Chase, coolio, I'll give him a buzz. I think he's like, okay, these dudes are important. I need to track them down. I need to do whatever I need to do to track them down. Also, there's a lot of theories that Marvin is in control of the portals, and the portal might be the thing that transported Chase to the top of the parking lot. You see the portal as well in the Henrik clip at the end of You Aren't Ready for These Scary Games. I don't think it's a Marvin instigated thing. I think it's an artifact instigated thing, because you see it in the crystal ball after Marvin has touched it, and as far as we're aware, without Marvin, unless Marvin uses the artifact to travel to through this portal to wherever he needs to go. Jury's still out on that one, but I don't think the portal tunnels are Marvin related. I think they're antimatter artifact ALTR related. So speaking of Henrik, shall we finally get onto that theory? My final theory is that this whole thing is Henrik's fault. It doesn't really loop in, it certainly doesn't loop in Multiverse, because it was literally something I thought of as I was talking. It doesn't really loop in time travel either, but there's so much we don't know that it's very difficult to kind of draw strong conclusions like, well, if this is the case, then this is the case at the moment. We've only really, the biggest lore drop we've had is the 22-minute anomaly detected Chase Brody video. Everything else is like snippets and ideas, and I do stand by not everything in EGOVerse is canon, because I just think that's 6 years worth of content. I think when Seán talks about it being 6 years in working, it's 6 years ago these characters were created by the community, by him, embraced, loved. We had a bit of fun with them, but now they are refined and they're their own thing. And from what we have in the past is not really related to what we have now. I think there are things like Easter eggs, like one of the puppets JJ uses in Jolly Jaunts is in from the original Chase Brody Power Hour. I think it's called Chad. So, dude. But I think that's more like a little nod, a little fan service for us. Chase having the same hat as he had in Power Hour. Again, it's iconic to his character, to us, so it's added in, but it literally doesn't have any further reference than, that's cool. I think the same, I will get to Henrik. I think the same is with the games we were playing on the stream. When things started glitching and going a bit wonky as we got closer to the end, Easter eggs from the egos, or ego eggs, as I like to call them, started showing up. We saw Marvin's mask, we saw Jackieboy Man's mask, we saw a comic with Jackieboy Man on it, which had actually been shared on Seán's Twitter for Jackieboy's birthday. I think there were a few others as well that I'm not remembering right now. I didn't catch any of them in stream because I was way too obsessed with the puzzles rather than doing the thing you're supposed to do, which is look around. But I don't think they, like the turtle as well, I don't think they were anything more than a little nod to us, a little ego egg for us to find. I don't think they're going to be, I don't think there's a turtle running around the IRIS facility. It could, like, the only link I can pull from it is, oh, okay, IRIS has had connection with all of the people in the past. There's apparently a doctor's plaque, I think, as well for Henrik. So they've had some connection with all of the egos, and that's, again, just bridging them all back in and how they're all going to be involved. But I don't see them as any more than a little bit of fan service, a little bit of a nod. I don't think they're like lore heavy and should be run with that hard. Sorry. So that's just that. But Henrik, let's talk about him. So for the longest time, until I rewatched his clip, I was convinced he wasn't actually going to be a doctor in this verse. He was just going to be a scientist. So, sorry, a medical doctor. He'd be a doctor, but doctor by scientific trade rather than medical profession, right? It turns out in his clip, he is straight up wearing doctor kit. So I'll have to retract. I'll have to retract slightly and say that he is a medical doctor in this verse as well, but it can still track with the theory I had, which is that Henrik was an employee, or so this is the Henrik's fault theory. Finally, we're getting to it. And I think this will actually cap off the video as well, because I don't think I have anything more. Oh, I could talk about it for hours, and I have been, but my brain is melting, and I think this is all the brain dump I want to give right now. My theory on Henrik, or the Henrik's fault theory, is that Henrik was employed by IRIS to, like, research into the medical side effects of being in close proximity to an altar, or like medical sciencey stuff about how people react psychologically, physically, biologically to antimatter, to the ALTRs, to whatever else IRIS research into, because I reckon it's a big company, so I think they got more than one project on the go. So once he's hired by IRIS, they basically give him, I don't know, maybe some subjects and some artifacts, and they're like, yo, can you run some tests? Can you see what happens when these guys get too close? Can you see what happens when it's like a few rooms away from them? And whilst doing these tests, Henrik himself starts getting infected with the side effects of being this close to an altar. Somehow, via whatever artifact it is, or maybe just via Anti being like, I should probably play my hand here, Henrik has contact with Anti. Through these tests, Henrik somehow I have no idea yet, I need more information to have an answer to this, but somehow Henrik gets into contact with Anti. Or even in his tests, he starts experimenting on this altar, this artifact, and is like, yo, what can we extract from this? Maybe we can extract the thing and we can run more tests on the thing. And perhaps in extracting something from the artifact, he releases ALTR 112049, making it the first life form. And maybe for a while he's working with it. Maybe it's like a secret project of his. And he's like, I know the medical profession. I know doctor stuff. I know this stuff. Maybe I can make Schneepelstein's monster. Maybe I can make this a thing. Maybe we can talk to it. Maybe we can converse with it. Maybe we can understand it better if it can explain to us why it's doing what it's doing, what it's after. And so via this, Henrik makes Anti. Obviously, I.R.I.S probably not super happy with that. The first life form altar we have, and it's now, I don't know, drawing in on all the antimatter that they've been using, drawing in from all of the artifacts, slowly getting stronger, and Henrik is like corrupted as all hell by this thing now, and it's like the power balance has shifted. Henrik is now doing his anti-asks rather than the other way around, and perhaps it's Henrik that gives him the name Anti, and kind of starts befriending it, and that's how we get that. I mean, the coding system for Alter is confusing because to slightly stop Jesus, I'm so bad, I'm sorry, my brain keeps remembering things I haven't said yet, because Alter 5914 is either EIN or EAID, but because we have an established altar that has alpha numeric system that tracks to read out Anti, you kind of have to believe that's the same system. It will be a really weird coincidence if, like, I can't believe Anti's the 144,000th altar they've bumped into, right? There's a reason they're giving these altars these coded numbers. Whether it is a conscious alpha numeric coding system, whether there's something else behind it, that the answer to that is I don't know. And because it's I don't know, we can't crack what 5914 is referencing, although everyone is now running their own names as alters. I'm alter 112935, which I think is pretty cool. There is a coding system, and whatever that is, when we find out more information about that coding system, maybe we need more alters to be kind of revealed to us so we can track how the coding system is working, and then maybe that will help us crack exactly what alter 5914 is. But I do believe that is, well, we know it's an object. We've been told it's an object. Anyway, back to Henrik. So he's made this monster. I.R.I.S are pretty mad about it. He's made an antimatter alter life form, and that just doesn't seem to be very good because they don't understand anything about this. Henrik's claiming he does, but I.R.I.S don't believe him, and they're tracking him, and they're like, you have extreme exposure levels, none of this is good, you're tapping out. I also don't think you can get fired from I.R.I.S and remember what you did there, so I think there's definitely some kind of Matrix mind wipey, is it Matrix? I don't know, but some kind of mind-wiping tech, and it's I.R.I.S. They definitely have something like this. There's like, you're fired, now you can't remember anything you did for us, go about your day, enjoy your life. Or even, you can't leave ever. You now have to be dead because we have to hold you in captivity because you know too much, but you can't leave. So either Henrik, I mean, one of my theories was Henrik's clip is him trying, like he's got this little memory of something, or even it's Anti still having the connection to him, being like, I need you back, I need you to come back, you need to come back to me. But Henrik can't remember what any of that is all about, and he's just listening to the voice in his head, trying to work out some way of working out what it was he was working on, and how he has this voice in his head that's doing this thing, and this voice that keeps telling him all these things, and I.R.I.S is something important, and antimatter, and he ends up doing all this research into it. So that research he's doing in his clip at the end of You Aren't Prepared for These Scary Games is him frantically trying to remember, or it's him frantically trying to work against I.R.I.S from within the system, which would then lead to him being Echo, or him just trying to understand more about Anti. Maybe he's still working at I.R.I.S, maybe they didn't get rid of him. So there's kind of that. I think Henrik is the one that I am convinced the most definitely did, possibly still does work for I.R.I.S. Now on Marvin, and that obviously is then how it would be Henrik's fault that Anti was even a thing, because he made him and made it possible for others to become susceptible. Briefly on Marvin, I also think Marvin has worked with I.R.I.S in the past, but doesn't agree with them, doesn't agree with their morals, doesn't agree with what they're doing, and I don't know, maybe after touching an artifact himself is like, don't play with this. This is bad. Bad things will happen if you keep down this route. Stop it. And I.R.I.S were like, absolutely not. We're good. What did you see? And Marvin's like, nah, up yours. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not helping you. I'm off. I'm out. I'm going to find a way to stop you. And so he's working kind of lone wolf now, or he is with his new visions like, I need to go find these people and stop them from getting into any trouble so we can stop whatever the hell it was I saw from touching that artifact. I need to make sure these people don't get close to any artifacts. And that would also kind of explain to me, like, there was a tweet that Iris did kind of along the lines of, I can't remember it word for word now, but it was along the lines of, science is so incredible, it's basically magic. And I read it thinking it was Iris being like, magic? Pff, you don't need that. Science, baby. Science for the win. Some people have read it of them being like, magic is science. They are one and the same. So I think there's a couple of interpretations to it, but mine still remains as them being like a middle finger to Marvin, being like, we don't need your magic because we got this super awesome tech and we can do everything you were doing anyway. And magic is just super cool science and there's an explanation for everything and that's what we're going to prove. Whereas Marvin's like, no, you're messing in matters you don't understand. This isn't science. This is magic. This is like, I don't know, third realm shit. You can't just go sticking a scalpel in it and running some tests on it. Sticking a probe, that's the one I wanted. Can't just go sticking a probe in it and running some tests on it and thinking it's not going to fight you back. I also, just before I wrap up, some really super brief ones. I don't think Iris knew that Auntie was a man until Chase had the conversation with Echo, because it just sat really interesting to me that all of the information Scientist Aaron then gives about what he supposes Chase is seeing is very similar to what Chase says. It doesn't like elude further than what Chase says to Echo. So I think that they didn't know, and using isolated observation, they found out that he sees a man, he hears these voices, they talk to him. We need to try and push him to give us more information about that. So maybe if we tell him we already know that and that we know other people who have gone through that, sort of, we can get him to tell us more about this and we can be a little bit more in the know about what's going on. Perhaps as well, the need to move Chase at the end is because Henrik did a similar thing. And because there's an alarm going off, so something's being triggered when that happens. What has been triggered, we don't know. Also, another note I wanted to add, there was a document about the ALTR 5914, the one that confirms it was an object that people brightened and then you could see under the black retracted text. All of these tweets I refer to as well, I'm going to link down the description box below for reference, and I'll try and put links on the screen as we go to the tweets when I mention one. But on that document, we also get revealed that something was lost in the fire of 36. Again, that's one that will, that's a sprinkle of a this is to come lore drop, I think. But it just goes to show this isn't just a straight linear story. The whole thing has been thought about forwards, backwards, and behind, in terms of past, present, and future, which is the way people normally say that. So I am so excited. I'm so grateful to be being here whilst the ego drops are coming, because they were always something about the channel I loved. I started watching the channel back in 2018, I think. So I missed all of the ego apocalypse. I missed all of the original anti stuff, but it always really intrigued me. So to be here now for like what I'm claiming the big drop, the IRISVerse, it's super excited. I'm loving being a part of it. I'm loving theorizing, even if it is breaking my brain slowly and unhinging me. Though I do feel like I've got to a point now where I've gleaned as much as I can, and theories I'm having now, I'm just going round and round in circles. Apart from the multiverse one, that's a whole new one for me to delve into, so yay, there goes my weekend. I absolutely adoring it. I cannot wait for more. I'm ready to be patient for more, because obviously I know these projects take time, and I just can't wait for more of the story. I'm also super grateful that this is all being given to us for free. The projects that are going on now clearly are much higher budget, much higher professional output. There's a lot more going into it. There's camera crews, sets, extras, new characters coming in that aren't just Seán wearing another costume. There's a whole universe that's been built. There's everything, makeup, hair, costumes, all of it is going on now. Special effects, and so this all obviously adds to budgets. A budget that putting this project out for free on YouTube is not going to get a even quarter of a return probably. And I'm so grateful that we are getting it for free and it's not being put behind a paywall and we're not having to pay to enjoy this. It's being put out there because it's a creative story that clearly Seán's been wanting to tell for a while, wants to tell it a very specific way, wants to tell this story as visually and audibly interesting as possible, and I'm just so grateful we get it for free, because it would have been really easy to say, look guys, I put quite a lot of money in this project, I'd like to get a return on it, so if you want to watch it you got to pay a $5 per episode. And lots of people would have done, and he would have made some money back on it, but it's just, yeah, obviously he's not doing this to make money off of it, which is amazing. And I'm just so grateful we get it for free and we get to enjoy it and we get to play for nothing. And it's just there for everyone and anyone to consume. I also, again, I'm just going to reiterate, I stand by that not everything in EGOVerse is canon. This is IRISVerse. This is different. It touches on very few things from the EGOVerse. I think most of the things coming from the EGOVerse is like character names and slight visual style. But even so, all of them are getting updates to their look. What I'm basically saying is, if you don't know what this is and you sat with me for over an hour, possibly, depending on how much I cut out, but probably won't cut out much. If you sat with me for an hour listening to me ramble about this and you're into it and you want to learn, I really hope it's not all EGOVerse canon. I really hope it is just the select few that are important to this IRISVerse story, because I think that way as well, it makes it so easy for any new viewers who weren't here through all of the rest of it, like I wasn't, trying to trail through all that stuff over the last 6 years. Well, I haven't been, over the last 4 years for me, has been painful enough. And having people reference things like Overnight Watch. Oh, that was a fun one, actually. Someone thought that Overnight Watch was potentially IRIS, but like in their infancy. I'm happy to have that as canon. I like that. And also the game stream for Anomaly Detected was very heavily focused, or very heavily influenced by Overnight Watch, which is part of a Thankmas stream that was done in 2018, for anyone who doesn't know. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's my point. That's a 24-hour stream. Are you gonna go on? I mean, the people have done highlights videos online, but you're gonna go back and watch through, are you gonna ask people to go back and watch through 6 years worth of content for just potential little drops that were here, there, and everywhere? Which is why I really strongly feel that it is just the select few videos, the ones we've had in the last few years, plus Dark Silence, just because that clip at the end was referenced so heavily, and with all the theories that I've discussed today, it fits really well. I really do hope that's the case, and if so, go check out the videos that are linked in the description. They will get you up to date on everything you need to know. Say Goodbye is one to watch if you just want a little bit of an insight into Anti, but I don't think it's anything more than that at this point for the IRISVerse. I just don't think Anti doesn't glitch anymore. He's not green. He's not like a computer virus anymore. He is something entirely different and terrifying, might I add. So I don't think that's... I just don't think Say Goodbye is relevant anymore. I really don't. They were characters that were made by the community or made for funny bits back in the day, and now they're established and fully fledged, and they have backstories and further characters that are connected to them, and they're part of this bigger world and this bigger story and this bigger universe that even itself has rules and other characters that aren't egos, and there's just so much going on. I just can't believe... I just really hope that I'm correct in at least that. I'd love to have that confirmed, because I think that would help. I don't think that would give away any answers. I just think that would help people to, one, not look at a playlist and go, oh my god, 112 videos to watch through to catch up on what I've missed. Just 6 is much more easy to understand. I just don't think the JSE stuff, the Jacksepticeye stuff, is relevant anymore. I think this is taking those characters that were made, but bringing them into their own thing and bringing them into their own story. And I'm really, really here for it. But yeah, if we can get it confirmed that not everything in EGOVerse is canon and IRISVerse is its own thing, and if we could get a double confirm on, like, if I'm right on the videos I've pulled out. I really don't think it's giving anything away, man. It's just helpful. So I stand firm. Just the 5 videos, 6 videos for now, are canonical in the IRISVerse. EGOVerse, if you want to learn about that and stuff, man, you got a ride ahead of you, because there's a lot to go through. I am going to stop, because that is 1 hour and 15 minutes I've been rambling. Hopefully this video isn't as long as that, but I genuinely think it will be. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for enduring my brain dump. I hope it was helpful. I hope you kind of see what I was saying. Even I haven't settled on a theory. I've got like 3 different ones that it could be. I mean, the anti-IRIS one is weak source in my mind. It's, for me, it's between time loop, multiverse, which is a new one for this video, and Henrik's fault. They're the 3 at the moment that are strong contenders for me. They're the 3 that track nicely through the information we currently have. And I also love that I can't settle on one, because that means I don't have enough information, which means I'm still going to be guessing, and I still could be completely wrong. If you have any theories about this, please let me know down in the coffee pot below, down in the comments section. Also, if you want to talk more about it with more like-minded people, do head over to the Jacksepticeye Discord, hop into the Ego Theories chat, because everyone is always in there repeating themselves and going around in circles on this stuff and debating whether or not everything is canon. In IRISVerse, Chase only has 1 kid, and the kid that he was, and the 2 people who we're talking about now is implied as his wife and his kid. That annoyingly reminds me of something that I was supposed to say earlier. I don't believe now that Chase had marital issues in IRISVerse. That's established in Chase Brody Power Hour, that he was trying to work and be bro average to earn some money for the kids. Stacy, who was his wife at the time, was like, nah, I'm taking the kids, I'm leaving. It was all part of the joke. There's even a joke in Henrik's first Power Hour where he says his wife is cheating on him with a tennis coach. Like, these things aren't canon. But I think in the IRISVerse that there is no marital issue, because it would be odd for Chase to refer to the woman who tried to take his child away from him as one of the most important things in his life. And I also think that if you listen to the audio in Dark Silence, there's a woman scream and a child crying. I don't know why they'd be living together if his wife had separated from him and taken the kid. So unless Dark Silence is Chase going to their house and visiting them, maybe that's the one. Maybe there is marital issues, but I don't think he had marital issues, and I'm intrigued by that. I'd kind of really like it if he didn't, because I feel like that's the line in the sand of, look, this is different. This does not connect to the rest of the EGOVerse. This is the IRISVerse, and we're on a different path now, and you as the community have no control anymore, which I think was a nice thing about the end of the stream game, where we lost control, and it was like, no, you did this, now you gotta watch it. You made these characters, you set up these things, now you have to deal with the consequences of what you have made, basically, indirectly. But that is it. I'm gonna wrap up now before I think of something else to say. I'll see you down in the coffee pot below if you want to talk more, or over in the JSC Discord server as well to discuss more theories with like-minded people. But for now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast, as always. If you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some good old-fashioned love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video! Why can't I just think about this thing for one moment and it just be the same as it was last time I thought about it? Why is my brain always like, ooh, but what if?